Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I am your host Faisal Raza Khan and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, since Afghan Taliban took control in Kabul, security threats to Pakistan from the revival of Afghanistan-based TTP Tehreek-e-Taliban increased rapidly, and after the US exit from Afghanistan, cross-border terrorists and suicide attacks inside Pakistan increases, especially on security forces, law enforcement agencies, on vital installations and on foreigners, especially Chinese. It's important to mention that after Army Public School Peshawar unfortunate incident in 2014, there was a complete consensus among all stakeholders, including political parties, to go after the terrorists and eliminate them. Since then, especially, but primarily since the last couple of years, counter-terrorism operations intensified, and it is because that threats of terrorism across the border from Afghanistan are increasing. According to the available data, around 1,063 incidents of terrorism occurred only in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan provinces in last 6 months. Pakistan Army conducted 22,714 operations, means 126 operations daily and 5 operations every hour, in which 111 soldiers and officers were martyred, while 354 terrorists killed. It is no doubt that when threat is more imminent and dangerous, when on hostile agencies, especially from India, and criminal mafias, funding, resources and facilitation, and shelter by Afghan Taliban, terrorists, especially TTP, Balochistan Liberation Army and all other banned outfits, they are after Pakistan's ideology, social and cultural fabric, economy, investments, China-Pakistan economic corridor, foreigners including Chinese, education, health, especially polio teams and others. The evolved Azm-E-Istehkam strategy is inevitable and its politicization is unnecessary. To discuss this very important strategy, which is called Azm-E-Istehkam, we have in our studios Brigadier Retired Dr. RASHID Wali Janjua. Most welcome to you, sir. Thank you very much for your arrival. He is the Defense Analyst and Director, Islamabad Policy Research Institute. Online joining us, Brigadier Retired BABAR ALAUDDIN. He is the defense expert. Most welcome to you, Brigadier Retired BABAR. Thank you very much for your time as well. My first question to you, Brigadier Dr. RASHID Wali Janjua Sahab, that what's the threat environment is emerged in tribal districts particularly, and what kind of response is being planned under Azm-E-Istehkam strategy?
Thank you very much. The threat environment is quite a vitiated environment security wise. It is an unstable situation in the merged districts, and this was a continual rise in the TTP violence after the US withdrawal in 2021. So much so that in 2023 there were 1,215 terrorist incidents. So that will give you some idea of the intensity. As of now, I have the authentic figures. Army alone has suffered casualties to the tune of 92 shahadats and 267 injured soldiers in KP. Now this is a very large number.
It is,
and
no doubt.
Other law enforcement agencies, they are also bearing the brunt, and the people definitely, they are the most impacted segment of the society. The situation definitely is restive in areas like FR Tank, FR DI Khan, frontier region Laki Marwat, and upper South Waziristan. In North Waziristan, it is restive and with episodic eruption of events. Kuram, it's a sectarian flavor. Bajod, it's a bit restive. Khyber, we have Tira Valley area, which is quite vulnerable. and the Bara area is a subject of continual depredations, but situation is a little under control there. So this is the mosaic of security, and what is being planned under Azm-E-Istehkam, in fact it is to refocus and to bring an integrated approach to the whole operations.
Obviously.
Because you cannot go about eliminating the scourge of terrorism, which is externally abetted, externally based also, through piecemeal actions.
Yes.
So a synergy is required, an integrated approach is required. So the whole communique of Azm-E-Istehkam was to focus the national effort to present a united front in a synergetic manner.
Definitely, you are absolutely right. And when we are talking about Azm-E-Istehkam strategy, what about fulfilling the national action plan? Because that is the pivot to it. And what about the backup support to military, what you are talking about? Because without that backup support, it is impossible to have such a large scale operation against the terrorists. Why security apparatus success never consolidated in the final outcomes, like more than 50% of the seminaries still unregistered, their curriculum not considered, still whole of the system approach is missing? Why political parties and other anti-terrorism campaign is only the military's business or the military's job and their domain? Why they are thinking so?
You see, that's the whole point. It's not the military's business. It should not be the military's business alone, because non-kinetic component is a very important component of counter-terrorism strategy. That has to move in sync. Unfortunately, that has lagged behind the kinetic component. While the military gets focused, it goes and gets deployed, it plans well. The other components of the state, they do not keep pace with this. And you mentioned NAP. NAP is a function of several institutions.
Obviously.
The judiciary has to modify the criminal justice system. And unfortunately, your anti-terrorist courts, as per the police reports in the most impacted region KP, are not delivering. The judges are, they are reluctant, and conviction rate is very, very low.
Yeah, definitely.
So much so that there are demands for a special terrorism court.
Yes, definitely.
This system is not delivering.
Yes, earlier we have under the constitutional sunset clause, we have those courts available, the military courts, and those were functioning well. But unfortunately, after that, it was again a setback.
So that's a capacity deficit. There is a capacity deficit in the CTD apparatus of police, because in the most impacted province, you had 479 incidents in 2023, attacks on police I am referring to. In KP, and in the same time bracket, there were only 4 attacks in Punjab. So there is no comparison. Whereas the competence level and the capacity level, there is a sea change. Punjab has invested a lot. There is a counterterrorism department which is well equipped, well configured, well resourced with all the forensic and other accoutrements. In KP, there is a complete deficit. They are trying to build up, but more needs to be done. As of now, the KP police, which is the world over the lead agency in counter-terrorism operations, cannot operate in merged districts if the army is withdrawn.
Yeah,
if
definitely.
The army, you see, we must take cognizance of the threat environment. As of now, there are 1,500 to 2,000 TTP militants which are in these areas or the merged districts, starting with Lucky Marwat, Tank, and going all the way up to South, North Waziristan, Bajor. So these people are operating and they're just like a fluid force. You carry out operations, they merge in the population, they move to some other area, and IBOs used to take them on one by one episodically, and that was a pretty effective measure. But now what the response is going to be, as per the kinetic component of Azm-E-Istehkam, is a modular approach in which this we are going to upscale the operation from IBO to actual operations to take them on the CIS frontier, proper operations with integrated employment of assets by army
Obviously,
would be conducted.
obviously, you are absolutely right, absolutely right. Brigadier Retired Babar ALAUDDIN Sahib, as Brigadier Dr. Said, Rashid Wali Janjua said that it is the criminal justice system actually and the overall the anti-terrorist courts functioning, that is very important. So how do you see the criminal justice system overall, absence of speedy trials and punishments, at least 605 cases still pending with anti-terrorism courts across Pakistan, only 217 terrorists sentenced. So far 24 cases were related to Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, where only 9 and 13 ATCs respectively exist, while both the most vulnerable provinces. How do you see this whole scenario?
Thank you very much, Faisal sir. First of all, as Brigadier Rashid was just talking about the National Action Plan, I will just add on to that, National Action Plan required certain actions to be done, certain measures to be taken by various institutions, And as you have talked about judiciary, the judicial, the criminal system, judiciary is one component. The provincial governments are very, very important component of that. And we must admit the fact that these important institutions, for very reasons, some of them well known to them, some reasons we also know, the reluctance, the lack of commitment, that these institutions, the provincial governments have not been able to put in their best and support the National Action Plan overall. Army has been doing whatever possible, and as I always say, that militarily no operation conducted in these areas for last more than 2 decades, militarily no operation has failed. Every military operation has succeeded. Unfortunately, there was supposed to be, and there are still certain actions to be taken by the administration, by the political government, by other allied institutions like judiciary, you have said. Those are not being taken, due to which the overall impact or the effects are not as the way we actually wanted them to be. Now, coming to the your point regarding the anti-terrorist court and criminal justice system, this is a very, very important point, and so unfortunate that the Chief Justice of Pakistan even has been highlighting this point. The government law minister has been highlighting this point. Everybody says, media, that there is a lot to be done as far as criminal justice system is concerned, in order to speed up these trials and speedy justice is to be ensured. Because unless these terrorists are punished, unless they're taken to task, there's not going to be any, as far as these terrorists concerned, how can you stop them from doing this? So the most affected provinces, as you have said, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan, where more than 90% of terrorist activities are being have been taken place, and even now they are going on. There are only few number of courts, and even those courts are not delivering the way they are supposed to be. Because Rashid has very rightly pointed out, there is lack of commitment. Either those judges, for reasons best known to them, are reluctant, they feel threatened, or whatever is the case, the system is not delivering. So one, that system has to deliver, and secondly, wherever important reforms have to be inducted into the system, judicial reform, you can say, those has to be done very, very, I would say, with immediately, because unless that is done, how can you do that? Army is doing its job. The people are arrested.
You're absolutely right, because unfortunately there are only 9 courts in Balochistan and only 13 in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, as compared to Sindh has 32 and Punjab has 23 courts. So they are having more cases pending even in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and in Balochistan as well. So it is an alarming situation. That's why Azm-E-Istehkam is there, because we have to make a consolidated effort at the state level, at the system level, and at the whole of the nation approach. So when we are talking about Brigadier Dr. Rashid Wali sahab, beside hostile agencies, what about smugglers, the drug dealers, the illegal oil tycoons, non-custom paid vehicle smugglers, other illicit business and mafias actually funding and they are having those resources for those terrorists, and they are actually using those elements to safeguard their illegal, illegitimate activities. Why concerned governments not taking stern legal action against such elements?
there is a thick miasma of illegal spectrum in which swim the fetid criminal enterprises, and unfortunately there is a symbiotic relationship that has been established between the criminal gangs, the crime, and the politically influential and the local influential elite. I call them power elite of the area. Now, that power elite has established the linkages with the non-custom paid vehicles smuggling, the smuggling of diesel, for instance, the smuggling of other commodities that find including narcotics. Unfortunately, a part of that is shared with these terrorists as well, and there is an entire cordial between the terrorists and those influential power elite. And whenever state starts on an initiative to stop this and institute better border controls, cross smuggling, the whole architecture of criminal activities, the illegal architecture, that stands as a bulwark against the state efforts. And then the state efforts are not very integrated. The province looks the other way, the federal government pushes the other way, and because of the polarized political environment, the political government, if it does not respond to the requirements and instructions of the federal government, I think crime cannot be controlled. So, this is one of the reasons, and locally influential politicians who are in the mainstream politics also, they are benefiting from this illegal activity. The non-custom vehicles, they are in thousands. It is an amazing thing. If you go to Malakand and those areas, you will be amazed to know that the government which has impounded those vehicles, there is a huge pool, and people do not know what to do with that, because the policies have yet to come. There is a need for legislation and to bring about better border controls. Border management is very, very important.
You were talking about the border control. So, what's your thoughts on the former CIA data analyst Sarah Adams recently said in a show that India sending at least $10 million to Kabul, which is further used by TTP, BLA and other terrorist organizations to spread terrorism inside Pakistan, and hit and kill squads as well to murder people on Delhi's directions. So, how do you see this phenomenon?
Yeah, I will come to that. First, the border terminal we were discussing. What we require is not only the placebo solutions, but actually a unified border control terminus regime. The border control terminals are being looked after by 13 agencies at the moment. It is a virtual mishmash, and each agency has their own overlapping turfs and interests. There are law enforcement, there are regulatory institutions and customs, FIA, etc. Each one of them has some kind of a stake. So, that is an unfortunate and a bitter reality, but we must countenance that.
Yeah, definitely. You are absolutely right. But another fact is, when government tried to have one document regime at the border for anyone who is crossing that border from Afghanistan, but unfortunately there was hue and cry, and we have seen in Chaman what was happening. Some of the political factions, some of the pressure groups and all others backed by some mafias, they were having lots of agitation over there not to implement that one document regime, but now it is going on. So, this also a case in Pakistan, unfortunately, because from one way or another, most of the pressure groups and the mafias, they are exerting pressure not to do legal things.
The lobbies which cry the most are benefiting from the crime the most. So, that is the benchmark to understand why they are opposing. And then I was mentioning about the border control, the smuggling, smooth border controls. So, those have to be in the larger national interest and interstate relations also. We can't spoil relations with Afghanistan for better trade relations.
We don't want it, really.
And already I think Pakistan Palpa, that is seized with this matter. The federal government is mulling over several possibilities for a unified border terminal control where one institution, one agency has the control, and there is a synergy in our border control regime and the protocols. Present process in which there are so many cooks spoiling the broth, each one having their own stake, is not working. And you mentioned about Sarah. I think I'll not be able to comment on the veracity of our statement, because what I can definitely comment is that this proxy warfare and support to the TTP militants is going on, and it's going on unabated and very strong. There's a whole range of bases from Kunnar, Host, Paktiya, Paktita, where they are training the suicide bombers, they are creating tashkils, they are getting indoctrination, and it is as if somebody is choreographing, somebody is orchestrating from the Kabul some elements amongst the AIG, not entirely the AIG. But our dilemma is that we cannot create a LOC-like environment on Pak-Afghan border. So, we have to tread very carefully.
Yeah, definitely.
We have to remain positively engaged, lean on Afghan interim government to stop the depredations of TTP and stop and choke the flow of such funding that Sarah Adams alluded to.
Definitely, it is very important for them as well. Brigadier Babar Sahib, Pakistan requested Washington for sophisticated small arms and communication equipment, resumption of some of the latest platforms, emphasized on strong security linkage and enhanced intelligence cooperation. But whether it is also requested to Washington to take back billions of dollars of the latest arms and ammunitions under the terrorists' use in Afghanistan through the interim authority.
A very important point, why Pakistan has requested through our ambassador to the American government for giving some small arms to the Pakistani security forces to combat this very big threat of terrorism, is for the fact that America, US is directly is one of the parties, very important actor in the entire conflict. Once the American left Afghanistan in 2021, since then there have been very authentic reports that the American weapons, the NATO weapons are being used by TTP. There are proofs which cannot be denied by anybody, although Americans on the face of it have already denied. But the pictures, the videos, those people who are apprehended, the terrorists, from then these weapons are they are captured and then they are produced to the media. No, Americans have to take responsibility now, not only for the fact that these are American weapons, they are also signatories of the Doha Agreement. So why Pakistan time and again tries to keeps on reminding the Americans that this is their responsibility to get directly engaged, because what the threat which has emerged from Afghanistan, we are facing it, but it's not only Pakistan. Ultimately, it's going to be the entire region if it's not controlled. Pakistan alone cannot be held responsible. We are doing whatever the best possible. Now, coming on to your point, when that Pakistan, how can Pakistan influence the Americans or make them realize that they have to take these weapons back? No, if you go on as per the ground realities, I don't think so. It's that much possible now to recollect those weapons from all these terrorist organizations and take them back. But at least they can help Pakistan in many ways to fight this war, because this is not our war only. That is why Pakistan have told them that this is their responsibility. So they must help Pakistan by giving us some, CQB weapons or the small arm to combat this terrorism. This is very, very important. We have to keep on pressing this point with the United States, because we just cannot lay back, or we can't step back. We have to make them realize, we have to make the international community realize, because this is a war, this is a threat, which is a real-time threat. Today, people may be thinking that it's only Pakistan which is facing it, but it is not only Pakistan. In the past, we have seen after 9/11, and that before 9/11, once the Taliban government was there in Afghanistan, there were lots of reports. Ultimately, they culminated into a full-scale war, and the entire world faced it. Even now, situation is like the same. So it has to be a unified efforts by Pakistan, by the stakeholders like US and other important countries who have been in the past one way or the other, just participating in various agreements, various negotiations, or influencing the Afghanistan-based governments, may it be the previous government of Karzai or the government following that, or even now the Afghan interim government. And recently, 2 days back, there were, we all know, there were talks in Doha, which is a very, very, I would say, positive development. But these things have to go on as far as the external efforts are concerned, as far as the diplomatic efforts are concerned. Only then we can see some results, we can see some positive results, because internally we're
When we are talking about the concrete
whatever
results, it is
possible.
important to take the situation in Pakistan as well in account, because after the announcement of Azm-E-Istehkam strategy, it was observed very keenly that some of the political parties and sections of media are politicizing this whole situation. Azm-E-Istehkam strategy is largely a consolidating effort at the national level to tackle this menace of terrorism rather than to be a large scale operation. But when Pakistan is facing such a grave threat of terrorism from Afghanistan, and two provinces of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan are the prime targets, why we are not trying to understand the threat which is actually imminent?
Faisal Sahab, this is a very important point, I think, of our entire discussion today. One of the point, as recently, some minutes before, discussed by RASHID, was also in the same context that unfortunately the provincial governments, especially the government of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, is not cooperating the way it should cooperate with the federal government, because it's a problem. It's a national issue. It's not a provincial issue. It's not issue of one political party. It's an issue of national security. And the point which you have highlighted, it is very, very unfortunate that even this strategy of Azm-E-Istehkam is being politicized for political reasons. And
Brigadier Dr. Rashid Wali Universa, why we politicize every national priority when Pakistan needs peace and stability to grow its economy, all of the development projects, even in the tribal districts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan, especially to bring foreign investment, the flourish China-Pakistan economic corridor, and to achieve that peace we need political stability and to root out terrorism entirely from Pakistan. So how do you see overall, because it is the need of hour, it is inevitable?
Yes, the political consensus and political ownership of the whole process is essential, and across the board political consensus is essential, because this political fragmentation is harming our counter-terrorism efforts. Our army and other law enforcement agencies that are in the thick of things, they feel quite let down once they feel that their sacrifices are not being acknowledged, and the other political instrument as well as the administrative instrument of the state is not keeping pace. You see, it is very evident, it is just to earn few political brownie points that we put the national security imperatives aside. This is unfortunately very myopic approach.
Obviously.
And the other is a very vicious nexus between the crime and the politics. There are politically influential people in KP and other provinces too, who are profiting by this illegal business, smuggling for instance. And if this is stopped, the rents that they accrue, those would be stopped. And because of these selfish motives, they veil their arguments in political confrontational terms. They give it a political hue to their actual economic motivations, which is to earn profits through illegal means. And if you stop smuggling, if you stop cross-border movement, a lot of money that flows into the pockets of these influential people would stop, and that would hurt them the most.
Yes, definitely. Very important point. Very important point. Brigadier Retired Babar Sahib, there are lots of reports, even the horrible reports, which indicates that the terrorist organizations from Afghanistan now entering into the Pakistani settled areas and spreading their footprints across Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan at fast pace, forcibly imposing their ideology on the local population, punishing them, destroying girls' schools. We have seen a couple of incidents in North Waziristan as well, kidnapping social media influencers and spreading that fake propaganda. But beside that, terrorists with latest arms and ammunition, having hostile agencies sponsoring, training and financing them, they are active in provinces of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan. Whether police will alone, what we are hearing overall, that police will alone able to deal with the terrorist presence at such an unprecedented scale?
This is very difficult. Police, especially the police of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan, is definitely not. They don't have the capacity, and unfortunately, they don't even seem to have the will to deliver. This is very, very important. Unless they do it, how can you manifest and how can you augment the efforts of the army and the civil armed forces? The police has to take responsibility, and this is where the responsibility of the provincial government comes in. The CTD departments of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is totally, I would say, they are not in a capacity to deliver. They have around 600 persons in total, whereas in last about more than 10 years, they have been given billions of rupees to just rebuild and the train this CTD department.
600 billion rupees through the NFC award.
Yes, billion rupees through NFC award, as the Prime Minister said a few days back, through the NFC award, and they were given 1% of more what they were supposed to be given only for this purpose. And likewise, CTD department, although there are quite some improvements as far as Balochistan is concerned, but because Balochistan has got some other issues, the situation in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa just cannot be compared for various reasons. But CTD department, the CTD department of Punjab has come a very long way. Even the CTD department of Sindh Police has improved a lot. But unless and until these departments are improved, they're empowered, they are given training, they are properly trained, motivated, taken responsibility. The police of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, especially in these emerged districts, you see, it's been now almost 6 years that erstwhile FATA was merged with Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. There was supposed to be some measures taken by the provincial government. Those measures, unfortunately, have not been taken, due to which administration is not very competent. Administration is not very effective in these areas, and this gives a
political will. Political will is very important if you want to do something, and why not rather playing politics at everything must rise above partisan interests, and stakeholders sit across the table to discuss all these important measures, empower a national counter-terrorism authority as well, develop a mutually acceptable counter-terrorism framework, and build upon resilience of the local population against so-called terrorist ideology. That is very important, and cleanse the country from terrorists and unite for economic development, because this is very important. If there would be peace in Pakistan, the political stability, then the economic development would be there.
There can't be any, I think, two ways about it. It is very, very important. I agree with you. Everybody, every patriotic Pakistani agrees with that. Political will is very, very important. While the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is facing the brunt of these terrorist activities, not for now, for last more than 2 decades, this is also a fact that this is the third successive government in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa of the same political party. So they have to take responsibility. They are accountable to the people, what they have done at their end, and irrespective of the fact that whatever is the differences or political differences with the federal government, these political differences are part of politics. This is okay, but this consensus for national security, consensus for economy has to be there. Everybody has to rise above these petty political differences, and please, there should not be any political point scoring as far as the security of the country is concerned, as far as the economy is concerned, unless you have stable political situation, unless you have these environments, how can the economy be improved? Because one of the biggest target of these terrorists are the Chinese, the CPAC. How can the Chinese work? And they are rightly so once they complained to the Pakistani government. Now we are
Definitely, you are
just
absolutely right.
embarking upon the
Absolutely
next
right.
phase.
Brigadier
See, we are
Retired
going to
Dr. Rashid Wali Janjua sir, why not, as we have discussed a lot about the police, why not provinces to invest heavily into the police? Because policing is very important segment when it comes to the law enforcement, the rule of law, and particularly when you have the to curb the criminal activities across the provinces. We need highly skilled, fully trained, well equipped with latest vehicles and weaponry, a police force that can challenge terrorists and extremists and act swiftly to wipe out the menace of terrorism, deploy police at the checkpoints and the effective patrolling. Why the military or the it's not might be the duty of army to patrol to have policing in the province. They have their business at the border areas, and when it comes to the situation like to handle it or out of control, then it comes to army. So why the police is too weak into the provinces, particularly in Balochistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa?
It is weak because of neglect. We require an integrated approach, and it's not a rocket science. The world has done it. We have examples. Irish Republican Army, you remember the British counterinsurgency operations against them. Those were not making any headway, and the military was badly embroiled. Overkill was being experienced. What happened was that they devised a very clever stratagem. They pulled back the army, resourced the police. They put their best police officer, the highest police officer was called Chief Constable on the island, and they created special courts known by the judge which had given that idea, dip lock courts, where judges used to be incognito. They used to give quick decisions based on obviously evidence, and the terrorists, once they got convicted and people saw them hanging, their halo and their myth was broken, and then the strength of that insurgency waned, and ultimately it resulted in Good Friday. So the whole aim of any kinetic, the military operation, counterinsurgency, is to create conditions for taking over by the civilian apparatus of the state. Unfortunately, here that state civilian component of the state is not ready. Civil administration is virtually absent in those areas. Police is not capable of operating into merged districts in KP. There is a complete absence of the civic infrastructure. When the state rate is not there, and you leave people at the mercy of those terrorists who are dispensing justice, they consider those terrorists as state. You know, this region of FR Tanak, Lucky Marwar, DI Khan, which abuts Afghanistan and Balochistan, this is a very, very sensitive region at the moment because of lack of development also, and the focus of the TTP on that region. In all fairness, we must also acknowledge some realities. There was a mention of you mentioned a figure of 400 billion, but actually once we interact with the stakeholders in the civil administration of KP and police, the actual reality is that most of the allocations actually could not be spent because of the bureaucratic hurdles, delays, and they have a grouse also that 5% that is their share in once merged districts joined, those should also be given. So those reality, they need, their police needs better training, better resources, and it needs a better civil administration and judicial backup, because without that there are 80 to 90% of the land in these merged districts is still disputed. So where is that alternative dispute resolution system?
Yeah, definitely it is very important, because ultimately that is going to decide where we are actually going. So Brigadier Retired Babar Sahab, it is amazing or very serious aspect of the whole anti-terrorism campaign that unfortunately these terrorists not only attacking our ideology or the cultural fabric, social fabric, but also the project of very important nature, as you have rightly mentioned about the China-Pakistan economic corridor, or the Chinese or the foreign investors and the workers as well, from different ethnicities, from different provinces, and also the polio teams. The polio is the one which is Pakistan is fighting from the last many years, but they are targeting that. They are targeting the girls' schools particularly. They are targeting police, security forces, law enforcement agencies and their installations. So these are all the vital segments of the state of Pakistan at which they are attacking. So we don't have to fight this war as a nation, as a whole of a nation approach.
Yes, we have to fight this war as a national approach, and that basically is the reason, and that basically is the entire philosophy behind this Azm-E-Istehkam strategy, because it says it's not only the army, the entire nation, each and every institution has to be unified in fighting this menace. You are very rightly brought out that they are attacking our social fabrics. They are basically attacking the state of Pakistan, the very much structure of the state of Pakistan, because it's a very, very visible, clear nexus between the enemies of Pakistan, the TTP, the Indians, and other enemies of Pakistan. And we don't have any dearth of these enemies as far as the country or state of Pakistan is concerned. So it's very obvious once they are attacking the schools, once they are just attacking the important installation or the mega projects. They don't want this CPAC to kick off. This phase 2 of which we called CPAC 2 after the PM's recent visit to China. They don't want it to kick off, because if it kicks off, Pakistan economically stabilizes. And once a Pakistan economically stabilizes, it hurts whom? So it's very, very easy. It's not a rocket science. Everybody knows that. So that is the reason not only me and you or who are saying, everybody, I would say, every voice which cares for Pakistan, we keep on saying that please, for God's sake, get united, be unified, create consensus, come out of these petty political differences, come out of these personal differences, no political point scoring. If Pakistan succeeds, if we defeat this menace,
right, Brigadier Retired
everybody
Babar
succeeds.
ALAUDDIN sahab, you are absolutely right, because the ultimate aim is to strengthen Pakistan, get out of this menace of terrorism. We have to build peace and stability in Pakistan, the political stability as well, to grow on economic front. Thank you very much for your presence online. Thank you very much, Brigadier Retired Dr. Rashid Wali Janjua sahab. Thank you very much for your presence in the studios. Viewers, as you have listened to our panelists, Azm-E-Istehkam strategy is basically whole of the nation, whole of the state and whole of the system approach, because the nation fights terrorism while the military fights terrorists. So Pakistan's armed forces, especially Pakistan Army, is fighting, but the question is whether whole of the nation, whole of the state and system also fighting. This is the question which we are posing through today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz.